Hello, everyone. Welcome to ReachIvy's webinar series, Know Your Top Colleges. ReachIvy is a premium education and careers advisory, and I'm Grishma Nanavaty, lead counselor at ReachIvy. With me today, I have Anjaney. He's an IESE MBA alumnus from the class of 2003. Anjan is part of IESE's Business School leadership team for Asia. He's based in Singapore and leads IESE's activities in Southeast Asia and India. Anjan works closely with various divisions of the school, such as MBA admissions, career services, and executive education. Anjan is a member of the IESE full-time MBA admissions committee. Welcome, Anjaney.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Great. And you know what I'll do is our students are eagerly awaiting to hear from you. So I'm going to jump straight into the questions.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Great. I know that the University of Navarra was founded in 1942 and has 4 campuses, while the business school was set up in 1958 with the mission to really develop global leaders who can have a positive impact on society. Could you maybe share with us a little bit more, a bit more background about the school and the university?
Yeah, perfect. Actually, good that you've done your homework on the dates. So let's just pause for a second. 1958. When IESE Business School was set up, none of us, over here were born. The world looked very different. So if you look at the mission that we had at that point, which continues to be the same, which is to have a global influence on top leaders worldwide, it's something that demands introspection, because global at that time meant something very different. So maybe it's important to understand why we decided to set up IESE Business School. And the philosophy of the school has really been that we saw that business leaders were forgetting something, that at the end of the day, they take a lot of decisions and that impacts people and society. So we wanted to bring this human dimension back into business and remind the world that business is not just about looking at the bottom line and numbers, but it's about people at the end of the day. So with that philosophy, we set out. And then at that time, we knew very little about how to run a business school, though we had very strong ambitions. So the first thing we did was to go out and approach Harvard Business School. And at that time, again, this was a tall order, a business school in Spain, in Barcelona. The center of the world at that time was the United States. Today, we can question that at least, and we'll see how it works in the future. But at that time, clearly, the US was the center of the world. So when the founders of IESE went out to Harvard and said that this is what we are setting out to do, we would like to influence global leaders to look at the human dimension, and can you help us? They reached out to us. And, that's how the friendship between IESE Business School and Harvard has been there ever since. So it's been over 5 decades plus that we have the IESE Harvard committee that meets annually to review the curriculum, to guide on the school's next steps, etc. And it's with this kind of a background that we've been created. So we are a mission-driven organization, and everything that we do, and when we jump into the MBA program, I'll try and highlight how this mission translates into the classroom. But I'll stop at that.
Great, thank you. And like you said, your school is truly global, and you have campuses and facilities, Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, New York, Sao Paulo, and I know you have the IESE Harvard committee, but you also have associations with a number of business schools and exchange agreements and partnerships. So it's really looking at truly a global program and trying to give the students the best of all the strengths of all the different geographies. So could you then, as you said, maybe let's get into more about the MBA program specifically at IESE School and how it encompasses all this diversity and global reach that you have.
Yeah, perfect. So again, it actually stems from the mission itself. So if you have to understand the mission, in a very simple form, you've got to capture really 3 ideas: global, leadership, and positive impact. That's what IESE is about. So when we say global within the context of IESE, it's not just about having nationalities in the classroom. It's the very DNA of the institution. So every aspect of the school, whether it's the careers, whether it's the curriculum, your network, post, MBA, etc., is of a global nature. Now, you highlighted that, we've got these various campuses in different places in the world. But what many people are not aware of is that we also have a set of 15 business schools that we call our associated business schools, okay? And these are institutions, all of them leaders in their country, some of them even in the region. And we've had an influential role in helping them set up. So I'll give you an example. Most of these schools are in Latin America, some in Africa, and in Asia as well. Back in Asia, in China, there's a school called CEIBS, CEIBS, which you may be familiar with. It's one of the prominent institutions in China. But what many people may not be aware of is that IESE played an influential role in its formative years. So CEIBS stands for the China European International Business School. And the European bit really comes from IESE. And Professor Pedro Nueno, who was my professor of entrepreneurship, he's the co-president of CEIBS. So that's the kind of influence that we have at a global level. And being part of the MBA program, any student will actually benefit from this wide network, right? So global is one aspect. Leadership is the second bit. So when we say leadership, we believe really there are three levels of education, right? There's the technical level. So you have to know the tools and techniques of doing the various business functions, finance, operations, marketing, etc. And that's essential, but that's not sufficient if you want to lead a globally sustainable business. The second level is the managerial level. And this definition of a manager that I'm using is really about getting things done, making things happen. You're given resources, you have a budget, teams, many of the prospective candidates, people listening to this webinar will probably associate themselves with this. They'll understand that. And many good business schools are also at this level. They focus on getting things done, how to be a good manager. And I think all these things are very essential, very important. But again, we believe this is not sufficient if you want to lead a globally sustainable business. So I'm talking about the leadership realm. I'm really talking about things like how do you take decisions under ambiguity? How do you listen better because of the different kinds of stakeholders that you have in today's business world? Can you understand what their issues are? Because if you can't listen well, how will you solve those new problems that are being generated, right? And if you don't do that, somebody else will. So you're going to be irrelevant in some time. And I can go on and on, but you get the message that this is really about leadership. And I'm telling you this because when we come to the case method, which is one of the very important ways in which we actually teach in the IESE MBA, it's not just because it's a fashionable thing. It's not just because, it's nice to have cases, they're real life stories. No, it's because with the mission that we've set out, we think it works very best. It works in the best possible manner, that you're given a real situation, you have a class which is curated in such a way that they come from different backgrounds, different nationalities. So the diversity question that you asked earlier is not so much just about a brochure looking good and be able to say that we've got close to 70 nationalities in the MBA cohort, but it's really for the program to work, for us to actually further our mission. So these are some of the critical aspects here that I want to highlight because it's not so easy to find that when you look at a brochure, of IESE Business School. So let me know if you want me to elaborate further on any of these points.
No, that's great. It's great to know, and thanks for the breakdown. It really I've never seen leadership so well defined in so many different areas in the examples, and like you said, the globalness. And what's more important, as you said, it's not just for the marketing or the brochure side, but you really are imbibing it in every element of the curriculum. So like you said, you do case methodology. There's an active learning method in the classroom. So what's a classic day like? How do students go about their day-to-day? And just maybe give a little more specifics about the classes, professors, and the curriculum as well, if you could.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's quite important to understand that IESE's full-time MBA program is a general management program. Okay, it's a program with a duration of about 19 months. And the first year of the program is quite different from the second year. The first year is quite rigid, I may use that word, because every student is required to do all the subjects. Remember, our students already have prior work experience, on average about 4.5, 5 years. And some of the students may be wondering, some of the prospective candidates, that I've got 5 years of experience, let's say in marketing or finance. So why do I need to do these courses again? Because many other institutions allow you to skip those kinds of classes. To understand this, you really have to understand what we are trying to achieve. We're trying to make sure that you understand business in its entirety. So it's not just about understanding the technical aspects like I mentioned earlier, but it's about understanding how finance, for example, would correlate to marketing, to operations, to human resources, etc. So how does business work in its entirety? How do the different functions fit with each other? And using the case method, we quickly go over the technical aspects, but the focus is really on a real practical decision that a leader has to take given a particular situation. So in the first year, the classes are quite intense, especially in the first term of the first year. You would typically do 3 cases every day. And so our cohort consists of, each year we take about 350 students who are divided into 5 classes, 5 sections of about 70 students each. And then you're further subdivided into a study group, which is about 7, 8 students. And this study group is what forms your core during the entire first year. So it's in this group that you would first prepare the case. And the group is formed in such a way that everyone comes from a different background, different nationality, different work experience, different personality as well. And you've got to make it work, so you don't have the choice of kind of shifting around different teams, etc. at this point. The idea is, like in real life, often you are given a situation and you've got to make it work. So this is where, things like influencing skills, etc. are developed. So every part of the program is really designed keeping, again, the mission in mind. So the first year, quite rigid, very intense, and designed to actually stretch every individual, hopefully not snap them, okay? But it can be quite tricky. So that's the first year. The second year, on the other hand, is quite different. It's completely flexible. It's all electives. So every student can choose from a mixed bag of subjects. They can specialize in any area they like. So in this kind of an MBA, you can be a specialist in any subject you want, but you can't only remain a specialist. So unlike many programs that give you a degree saying MBA in finance, marketing, etc., we don't do that. What we do is we give you an MBA from IESE Business School, which basically assures the market that you are well qualified to go and lead in any business function. And really the crux of this is the recruiters, the companies that come to hire. More than 500 companies come each year, and they come from various industries, various backgrounds. It's not just the top financial institutions or the consulting firms, but all kinds of companies come to hire for these roles. This is why often some students, think that, okay, IESE is good in entrepreneurship, it's an entrepreneurship school. Some people who are looking at the finance will say, oh, this is a great school for finance, but it's actually all of that, and it depends on you, what you want to do with the structure. One more important aspect here in the structure, between the first and the second year of the program, there's mandatory time for internships. So with the help of the career services team, students would get the opportunity to work with a company anywhere in the world on a real project. This is also a brilliant way for you to switch careers, to explore something new, or to look for the future company in which you would like to work. For those who come from family-owned businesses, or those who have a very clear idea that they would like to start their own company or want to explore the entrepreneurship path, we also have the option of them during summer to actually work on their own entrepreneurship project, okay, with the mentoring from the school itself. So this is, again, so not everyone has to just go and find a job. We realize that there are lots of people who like to start their own companies or would like to explore that. And again, IESE offers that possibility. In the second year of the program, like I said, it's all electives, but some of those electives are actually held in international locations, and we call them the overseas modules. So, if you're interested in knowing how business is done in Africa, or let's say in Latin America, you could actually do a module which could be for a week or a couple of weeks, where the IESE class goes to, let's say, Sao Paulo or Nairobi, and you would be sitting there and understanding how business works in those places, right? So that's, again, reinforcing this global aspect of the program itself. So that's the overall structure of the program, and I hope that's good for you, as a preview.
Sure, absolutely. And that's great to know. So, I mean, I guess the first year they're really learning the core. And then second year, yes, you can, expand your knowledge base in a particular area, but still you're making sure you're still getting the diversity in the subjects. And on top of that, like you said, there are options to really, if you're a family business, really explore that interest. And then also if you're looking to get, you're already, I guess, for international students are already away from home, but to even further diversify that global exposure, you have options to a wide range of locations. And I'm sure universities that you also have a tie-up and, associations with. I'd like to also ask about Spanish classes. I know you have intensive business Spanish classes on campus. Are students compelled to take that, or are they truly fluent by the end of 19 months?
Yeah, it's a great question. Good you asked it, because I forgot to mention that during the first year of the program, after your regular classes, you're given lessons in the Spanish language. Of course, if you're already fluent in Spanish, you can do other things. But most of the students are international. They're coming from outside Spain. Even the Spanish people who are there in the program may have come from other places in the world, right? So it's truly an international experience. And this is not a language school. So the idea is not so much that, you're just coming there to learn Spanish, but we think that we give you this additional benefit of learning a very important, increasingly an important language in the business world. And it's really up to the individual to become fluent or not, right? Because so many of the students do end up, gaining fluency. Spanish is a relatively easy language compared to many other languages, like let's say Mandarin, etc. So, however, there is effort that you need to put into it. So this is one of the other aspects of IESE, that it gives you this additional benefit. You do not need to know any Spanish when you join IESE. Most people do not speak, fluent Spanish when they join, and most of them actually don't speak any Spanish. However, exposure to a language also exposes you to another culture. So what we have observed over the years is that there's increasing interest from US organizations, companies, to hire an IESE, not so much because of fluency of the Spanish language, but because the students from IESE are likely to be more sensitive to the cultural aspects, the Spanish-speaking world. And in America, as we know, that's the market that's kind of growing. That's the population base that's growing very strongly. So it becomes a huge advantage. And I would encourage, especially students from Asia, to try and pick that up, because it helps you bridge two very distinct worlds. And that's where the value, the opportunity lies in the future.
Absolutely. And I'm also a big believer that, if you're choosing a college or university or a company or whatever, it's really important to immerse yourself in all the opportunities that they provide you. So you exactly said, you're providing the classes, you're in that environment. It's a great way to actually really learn the language and get fluent at it. So thanks for that. Another thing that you've touched upon, Anjaney, is, people who have an entrepreneurial side to, people who are from family businesses can utilize, resources on campus. But in general, can you talk to us about what facilities you have for students who are looking to completely switch careers? Or maybe they don't have an entrepreneurial background, but are looking to pursue that area. I know you have the Business Angel Network, and there's some case competitions. Could you maybe just expand on what options students have who are looking into these two areas?
Sure. So you're touching two areas. One is career changers and the other is entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
So let me take it step by step. Career changers, again, the last career services report, which is available publicly, you can see this data, but 83% of our students actually switched careers, which means they actually changed a function or a geography or an industry or a combination of that. And that's a very high number. So it's not that students come in with the idea that we will change. Many of them do have that idea. But what happens in ESA is really because you're exposed to every aspect of business. In a way, you're kind of pushed in directions that you may not even consider. See, most people at this point, if we ask them, what would you like to do in the future? They can only tell things based on their own experience currently. So they're often not going to be aware of many other opportunities. What ESA does, I think, extremely well is expose the students to different facets of business, right? And there are various ways to do that, via clubs, via the program structure itself, etc. So it's not surprising that as a result of all this, people change their minds. People find out new things. And that's reflected again in the statistic of 83% of the students changing careers. The structure of the program also encourages this. The internship is a critical step, because if you're trying to make a mark in a new industry, in a new function, in a new geography, you need some time. You need to build some expertise as well, so that the recruiter can actually take you quite seriously for that. So again, the internship becomes a critical step in this. And certainly, ESA is very used to these kinds of profiles. So for career changes, I would suggest those who are considering this to take a closer look at our business school. Now, coming to the aspect of entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is increasing, and there's a lot of interest today amongst the students. For us, entrepreneurship actually started long time back. Okay, so it was in the 60s that we set up our entrepreneurship center, research center. We have a small seed capital fund. It's called Finavis. It's exclusively for ESA startups. It's to the tune of about 15 million euros right now. It's in, I think, stage 3 or 4 at this point. Plenty of companies that have been set up as a result of this fund itself. But we also did a survey a few years back amongst our alumni, and we found that almost 1/3 of our alumni started their own companies within 10 years. So that's a reflection again of the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that is within ESA itself. Besides the standard business planning courses and the exposure to startups, etc., what I think is very important is to appreciate the community that already exists and the environment that you're in. So Barcelona has become quite an important hub for entrepreneurship. The Mobile World Congress is a reflection of that. So anything in the tech space that is happening, there are significant people available within ESA and the networks of ESA to help entrepreneurs, right? Because today, most of the entrepreneurship happens around tech. So this is also something that we have to take into account. The other thing on entrepreneurship, I would say, is it's still a challenging thing for many students. They have a strong interest, but to actually set up a company at startup is still a small percentage of students for practical reasons, I would think. Yeah, things like you've got a loan probably to pay back. You've got to think of the financing question. So it's considered quite attractive, to kind of go down the entrepreneurial track. But what we actually see is that the people starting a business on their own in a serious way is still a small group of people. And this is universal in any top business school at present.
It's thanks for that. I really am amazed by all the detailing that the school and the programs thought of. Like you said, maybe startups right up the bat might not be possible because of loans. Or earlier, how you were trying to diversify the and break down the classes so that students really get to interact with each other. So you've really given us a lot of insight into the program, and how you have, like you said, 60 different countries and different nationalities. Could you now maybe tell us a little bit more about the class profile? What are you looking for? I mean, there's so much thought process gone behind the structure of the program. Now, what type of students are you looking to enter this program? I know women is one area, and on your website, and when we speak to you, there's a women in leadership, and that's one area that you're looking at in your class profile. But what other things? Could you give us some specifics or statistics with regard to your incoming class profile?
Yeah, sure. So, contrary to popular belief, it's not the GMAT that we are looking at first. Okay. So yes, you've got to have your hygiene factors in place, which means you've got to have a good education. You've got to have a strong, academic background. You've got to show us that you can go through the program without necessarily suffering too much. So you've got to be able to speak fluently in English, and you've got to have a grasp of mathematics. But let's be very practical about this as well. This is not rocket science. This is a program where we are seeing whether you have genuine business interest and you're keen to develop yourself further, right? So that's what we are paying a lot of attention to. And how do we do this? So what we do is we want people who really want us, who understand what IESE is about. So if you're just during the interview process or during the interactions you have with the admissions committee, if you give us the standard answers, which you can get from anywhere, that, okay, it's a top school, the job scene is quite good, etc., I think that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't tell us, or it doesn't tell someone like me who's on the admissions committee, why you particularly are choosing the business school. And remember, a top school like ours has plenty of good applicants. So what really tips the person in favor of getting the admit decision is really their strong, genuine motivation to be part of this institution. For us, it's a relationship for life. Okay. A unique feature about IESE's MBA admissions committee is that all of us are alumni of the school itself. So, and this is it's a decision which is taken consciously. Okay, it's not just an accidental thing that's happened. We believe that the alumni can talk about their personal experiences, but then you being on the admissions committee also gives you this global perspective. You're not just interviewing a few people from your region, but you're actually seeing how the class is across the board. And then you are protecting your own brand. So you really want people who you can have a drink with, have a conversation with, bring them over to your house and introduce them to your family, etc. These are the kinds of things we look at. And it's really not, what we see quite a lot on the social media and other places where, okay, will a score of high 700s get you in the program? These things are good to have, but you know what? The GMAT is the only thing that you can change with some preparation in a short period of time. What you can't really change is really your thinking behind why you want the business school, your personality, etc. So we actually pay a lot of attention to this. And we've also put our money behind this. Okay, so when I say that, in our admissions process, we have a unique step, which is the assessment day. And so shortlisted candidates, usually after their personal interview, would be invited to spend a day, half a day with us at a regional level or in Barcelona. And the reason we do this is because we want to spend time with you. See, I often make a joke about this, but I think this is like a relationship for life. So if you were to marry somebody, you wouldn't just be doing this based on, kind of social media and rankings and things like that. You want to spend time with that organization. You want to spend time to understand and think seriously whether this will work for you. The same holds true for us. So we are going behind the scenes. Of course, you need to have a decent profile, but that's not the criteria. So even somebody with a low GMAT, but who is able to actually demonstrate to us their strong interests, leadership capabilities, potential, will be admitted. We do have a template in which we look at various characteristics, and I'll just briefly highlight that, right? So we are looking at things like career risk. We are looking at the financial background of this person. We are looking at academic, personality, how they interact in groups. So in the assessment day, again, because in IESE, you will be spending a lot of time with your team. So if you're an individual stellar performer, but you're not very good in interacting with others, this program will not work for you. You see, so these are the different kind of aspects that we take into consideration. But at the end, it's the human touch. So we do not want to just have a template and a model which says you have this particular GMAT, you're in or out, and that's what makes our job more interesting.
Absolutely. And I actually find that assessment day fascinating, that, you after the application and the essays and the interview, you're still calling students over. And that really showcases how important fit is for you. both ways. I mean, the student has to feel that the school is the right fit for them, and obviously for you as well. So it's great that you have this option for students as well. Could we maybe now move on to the application process? Well, like you said, we said assessment is one part of it. What other aspects, maybe a little bit about the essays, could you talk us through other aspects of the application?
Yeah, sure. So the application is quite straightforward for those who have actually thought about why they want the ESE MBA clearly. Those who are not, well structured in their thinking or are confused, we encourage them actually to reach out to us and speak with us, before they even begin the application process, because it's a huge investment in time, money, and effort to do an MBA, and we've been in that, that place before ourselves. So we think it's fair for students to or prospects to reach out to us, and we try our best to, engage with them even on a one-on-one basis to really help them, not so much to push them in the direction of applying or not applying, but to help them understand and navigate through this MBA maze, right? So there are no surprises really in the application. It's the standard, essays as to why you would want to do a program at ESE, what are your career aspirations in the future, etc. It's quite a short application. We like to make it quite easy. The new thing which we've introduced just this year is really a video essay, okay, which allows you to. It's an optional essay, so it allows you to tell us anything you want us to know. So if you want to bring out your personality or you want to highlight something which is not captured in any of the questions, you're welcome to do that, right? We haven't seen that many people yet take on. I think people are still camera shy, etc. But it could work to the advantage of some people, right? So this is the new thing that I would like to, because there may be queries, doubts for some people, around this. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. We do require 2 recommendation letters. Again, the recommendation letters can come from anyone who knows you very well. Ideally, somebody who's a senior person you've worked with, but it could be a professor. It could be, an acquaintance as well. It's just another data point. So it's not like any one of these factors is the critical factor. We look at the whole set of information, every touch point that you've had with us, to gauge, whether you can be a fit. And I would expect also the prospects to do exactly that, because you use the word fit, and that's exactly the word. It's not about whether this is a good program or a bad program or well ranked, etc. Those are fine, but I think the real thing is this something that will work for you? And that's the fit. So to really assess this, you've got to interact with the people directly. That's what I keep saying always, but I really believe in that.
And you really do provide multiple ways for students to reach out and connect with you. So that's great. And, that's why I think, we have every year we get students who, previously applied on their own and are now looking to reapply through ReachIvy, and they're very, very committed to IESE. And, you touched upon it earlier, really the GMAT is the only thing you can significantly change. But any advice for our students who are reapplying, any do's or don'ts, anything that you can suggest to them that can make their application stronger this year with round 2 deadlines around the corner?
Yes. So we love reapplicants. Okay, we don't hold that against you or anything like that. In fact, it indicates to us that you're strongly motivated for ESE. That's one. Number 2, we know that you know us now much better than you knew us the last time, right? And this is an important factor for us. So in the ESE admission committee's eyes, a reapplicant is actually a good sign, right? Now, often people are not getting a spot, not because there is a particular deficiency in them or in their candidature. Okay, it can happen. If that's the case, we try our best to give them that kind of feedback if there's something very specific that they could work upon. But often it's just the strength of the competitive pool, right? And so that's why being a reapplicant is all right. It's perfectly all right. And the tip I have for reapplicants is really to apply in the earlier rounds. Okay, why? Because it's just that your chances of getting a spot is higher. The probability is higher. There are more spaces. Also, the type of profiles we have. If you're a good applicant and you applied in the later rounds, if we have similar kind of people in the program, for ESS program to work because of the case method, we can't have too many people of the same type of profile. It just wouldn't work, right? So you may be perfect, but if you applied late, you may not have got that spot that year, right? So we encourage reapplicants and we encourage them to apply early on.
I think applying early is a very good idea, and I think that also comes through even with your financial aid. I understand that two-thirds, I think 70% of the financial aid you guys provide is given out in the first 2 rounds. And I know the office grants and manages, I think it's 16.5 million euros in financial aid. So maybe could you speak to us a little bit more about the financial aid options that international students have who are applying to IESE for the MBA program?
Perfect, yes. So we do recognize that, the MBA is a big investment. And that's why we have worked to provide different options, to enable the students to finance their studies. And there are 2 categories here. One is scholarships. The other is really tuition loans. Okay. So on the scholarships, you're right. We give about 16.5 million euros worth of scholarships, and it's a significant amount if you look at the whole amount that goes towards financial aid, etc. Financial aid is given primarily on merit. So the persons who receive the scholarship are people who are stellar, people that we think would be great ambassadors of the school for the future. So the first cut is made based on merit, and after that, if you make it to the scholarship list, it goes to the scholarship committee, who will then evaluate your profile and compare it with the rest of the scholarship pool, and also take needs into account at that stage. Okay, so there are 2 stages. Scholarships work differently from an admissions process, because once you make it to the scholarship list, even if you do not get a scholarship in the initial round, let's say in the first round or the second round, you will be automatically rolled over to the following round. So you may get a scholarship right at the end. Okay, we do give out almost 70% of our scholarships historically in the first 2 rounds, but that's because the strength of the applicant pool. So it's not like there is a statistic which says we have to give out 70%. No, it just so happens. And we make this information public so that those who are really looking for a scholarship, they do not miss these initial 2 rounds, right? Because the probability increases. So that's financial aid. And of course, there is some scholarships which are given directly from corporates as well. So whatever I've told you right now is really through IESE Business School, through the Alumni Trust, through the foundation we have, etc. But there are also scholarships given directly by companies. So those who apply to IESE, you will see that there is a box which says, I'm interested in every possible scholarship. Once you do click that box, your profile will be available also to companies who may want to sponsor for different reasons, right? So your chances are there right till the very end. And the best information is really on our financial aid website, because often it's dynamic. More companies come, things change, and we try to keep that as updated as possible. So that would be the best source. Coming to the tuition loan, we again have a few options. We have a local bank that gives loans to any nationality towards the tuition fees. And then there's Prodigy Finance as well, which also is available to students, any admitted student, towards financing their studies. Almost 2/3 of our students would take financial aid of some sort, right? Having said this, I would like to highlight that it is important to prepare yourself for an international MBA, because it's not just the tuition fees, but it's also all these various activities that you will be wanting to take part of, whether it's career treks, whether it's different social activities that are happening, not just in Barcelona, but in different places in the world. So that is something that you've got to also budget in. And because it's a full-time MBA, it's not possible really to be earning on the side. During internships, you do get paid, and depending on which kind of company you work for, you may get paid very well. But that should not be the primary source of your income, right? So you will need to plan. This is the message also, which is very important to give.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. It's good to get all these insights into the scholarship and also, work opportunities. You mentioned internship, but what about full-time opportunities for graduates? I know IESE has an extensive career services department. I mean, you conduct workshops, you have mentorship programs. What's interesting is you also have individual sector and geographic consultations. Could you maybe speak to us about all the different things and how you assist international students with career guidance and placements?
Yes. You touched upon an important point, which is how we are structured within career services. So let's not underestimate the challenge that IESE has, because we are attracting talent from all over the world. And our program, which is a general management program, again, attracts all kinds of functions, industries, etc. So imagine students who are now wanting to go anywhere in the world and work in any kind of industry. We've got to be able to support them, right? So we can't have a central command and control kind of organization as we used to have many years back. And some business schools still have that. So I would say it's work in progress, but over the last half a decade or so, what we've done is we've set up IESE representative offices or even institutions where key people are there to interact with companies, to build the relationships, to feed in the information back to the students, but also support them on different initiatives. I'll take the example of Singapore, just because I'm based here in Singapore and I lead the operations for IESE's business in Southeast Asia. So we have the Asia Career Summit that we organize each year. And unlike a fair, so in IESE we have fairs where, like I said earlier, more than 500 companies would come to recruit, a few thousand interviews would be conducted over those days. And that's a major event. But that doesn't necessarily differentiate us from any other top business school, right? But who are those companies? So these 500 odd companies are those companies which have an MBA recruitment engine already working, right? And that's why they need to go to every top business school. But the world has plenty of opportunities and many more organizations who would love to get talent from IESE, but they do not have the structure in place. So what we do in this kind of an event in Singapore, like the Asia Career Summit, the target group of students who are interested in roles and opportunities in the region, they would actually sit with decision makers, not necessarily with the HR people only, to interact with them, and the decision makers are looking at them to identify talent. So the conversation is not so much about which job shall I fill, but it's really about how do I help you in your business? And these people can create jobs for them, right? So this is a model where we are teaching our students how to fish for opportunities, not so much about how you just take them to a job market and how do they function in that, right? Which is also important. So we've made a lot of progress, and I would say we are proud to say that having done a benchmarking across different business schools, we are definitely among the leaders there. But it's a lot of hard work. The other important aspect here is we are still one of the smallest business schools by class intake, right? So we take in 350 students each year. Between 2 years, we've got a cohort of close to 700 students, but still it's tiny compared to many other leading business schools. Now, that's a conscious decision as well, because we've got to handhold a lot of these people. So when you're looking at a career shift, when you're looking at understanding how a new industry works, how a new geography works, we at least do not know at this point how to do this without having a lot of interaction with you. So if we are trying to transform the individual, we are talking about leadership growth. So it's a lot of personal attention. It's a lot of support that you get from individuals. And in Asia, we've set up a network. So we've got the Singapore office here, where it looks at Southeast Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand. We've got a team in Tokyo. We've got in Hong Kong and in Shanghai. And of course, in Latin America, we have our Associated Business School. New York, we have our own campus. Europe is already covered. Africa, we've got our Associated Business School. So really, this is one of the few institutions which can support people globally. It's not just lip service, but it's really, we put in a lot of structure and effort behind that. But I must say it's still work in progress because it's a gigantic effort.
That's great to know that. I mean, to just have those networks, those connects, the track record in all these different geographies is super. And it's great to know that you're still, looking to build upon that. I have one last question, but before I ask my question, I wanted to ask, we had a couple of students email in, and actually it was really funny. We had two very diverse questions for the same point. We had Chirag from Jaipur, who has 12 years of work experience. And then we have Sanjana from Pune, who is in her final year of college. And they both wanted to apply to IESE. So could you maybe talk to us about students who are, I know the general range, also what you've said on the website is between 2 to about 9 years of experience. So what about students who fall outside of the range? What recommendations would you have from them?
Yeah, very interesting question, and great. It allows me to actually talk about two very different areas. So those who are in their final year of university, let's say, okay, or have just kind of graduated, we have something called the Young Talent Program, which is basically an entry path into the full-time MBA. Of course, it's a program that's a global program, but we are looking at stellar people who have, strong academic grades in university, who again are aligned with the mission of the school, etc. But it gives you a pre-admission to start the IESE MBA after some work experience. Now, the minimum that we need is 2 years full-time experience, okay? Because for the case method to work, for you to really benefit from the IESE experience, without you having some experience in a real business, it's not going to be that valuable for you, right? So to Sanjana, I would say if she is a recent graduate, if she has just started a role, she might want to look at the Young Talent Program. If not, perhaps she wants to wait for some more time, and we are happy to have a review of her CV and give her feedback. On the other hand, you said Chirag has 12 years plus experience. And it's not so much about the number of years of experience. Okay, I used to also lead an executive search firm. And the important thing is to understand what is the motivation for Chirag to actually pursue an MBA at this point. Number of years of experience is correlated with age, right? What happens typically when you have 12 plus years, 15 years, even more, you probably are seen by recruiters as an expert in a particular industry, in a particular sector. So if you're looking at a career shift, if that's your motivation, it's possible, but it's a challenge, right? And there are ways to counteract that, but you've got to understand. But if you have 12 years of work experience, and let's say you're sponsored by a large company, which often happens, by the way, in IESE, okay? We have a few Japanese students every year who are sponsored, and they have over a decade of years of experience. But the reason they're coming is really to get a global outlook. They're getting, and they're not looking necessarily for a career change, etc. So again, it's a case-by-case basis. There is no such, thing that, okay, if you are 9 years or 10 years, etc., we can't look at you. That's not what it is. But it is uncommon for the reasons that I just mentioned, right? But again, we'd be happy to look at the person on an individual basis and counsel them. And we have other programs to actually, suit them.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, we found a lot of the times the students, we tell them, they're executive programs, but I think they, like you said, there's a compelling reason they feel the MBA is the right fit for them versus other programs. And I guess when they communicate to you, they need to make sure they articulate why. What is the reason that they really feel the MBA is the fit, and your school will provide them the right foundation or platform that they're looking for. My last question, Anjan, if you had one piece of advice to give students interested in applying to this program, what would it be?
Yes, I gave it a little bit of thought. And initially I thought, okay, these guys need to think more about the MBA, etc., etc. But I really feel that, anyone who's looking at a global MBA has given it a lot of thought. They are serious about pursuing an MBA. But the practical element here is they often just can ask the questions that they know of, right? They know of the things, and they ask their peers, they ask their friends, which is the natural thing to do. I think, and I again go back to this analogy of marriage. So for IESE Business School, you're getting into a relationship for life. And if you were to do that, you really have to know us. So we encourage you to visit us, to interact directly with people from the institution, alumni, the admissions committee people, other people who have been. So get first-hand information. But I would say this is valid for any choice that you're making. It's not just about ESE. Again, I repeat, it's a huge investment in time, money, and effort. So you owe it to yourself to take that extra effort, right? It's quite easy today to, look at videos, blogs, and comments from different people, and all that is very useful. But I think having first-hand information directly is the critical thing. So that would be my, one piece of advice to anyone considering an MBA.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's a huge investment of, not only financially, but of your time. And it's really giving you, if you're taking 2 years out of your career to pursue an MBA, it really you need to make sure that all the elements that you're looking for are really there. So yes, absolutely. Going there firsthand and interacting with the school, the alumni and students is a great way to really be sure of your decision. But thank you so much, Anjan, for all these insights, not just in the last question, but even to, learn about the way that the class is divided, the career, for business, for people from family businesses, the support you provide. I mean, there was really a lot of information for everyone listening. So thank you so much. It was really a pleasure hosting you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Grishma. I'm happy that we could do this finally. Thanks
absolutely,
so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I know all our students found it as informative as I did. So to all our students out there, please do subscribe to our ReachIvy channel to get more information on your top colleges. If you have any other questions, please email us at help@reachivy.com or log on to www.reachivy.com and submit a query. Thank you, students. And of course, thank you, Anjan. It was really a pleasure hosting you today. And we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks again, Grishma.
Thanks.
Bye.